In this moment, I give all glory to God. So Jesus the Christ was a great teacher because he was connected to source, to God within. He was a mystic, meaning that he was one with God. So everything that he did was God working through him. All the healing work, all the talks, all the statements. Jesus said some wonderful statements. The Father and I are one. What I do, you can do even more. And a whole lot of more other statements. And one of them he said was, do not be afraid of what you have to say to someone in any circumstances. I will speak through you. That's a very powerful statement, to know that God will be speaking through us. And so I work at that in my own self as a minister when I say that statement, that in this moment I give all glory to God, to start my talk off with that way. And no matter whether I'm at home working with Source to write down what the talk's about, or to stand in front and just speak as I'm attempting to do today, and let Spirit speak through me, it's still God is there. God is everywhere around us. And it's the oneness of who we are. So we need to understand that statement I just said, that God is speaking through us, and know that we don't need to be afraid of any situation that we're dealing with in our lives, that God will be there to speak through us. And that speaking will be coming from love and from connection and from oneness, so that we can let go of any fear or ego that we may have in the way, and just allow the love to come through us, which is what the journey is that we're on. We're on this great journey, and there is no end to this journey. It's something that goes on into eternally. Internally, it goes on eternally. There we go. And it is all about this, love. This is why we're here. We started that way when we were breathed as a soul from the heart of God. That's who we are, is this soul, which is an energy field full of light and love. That is God within us. We just happen to be temporarily in this physical body, in this name, and the situations that are going on in our life. But inside of that, our connection is to our soul, which is the I am consciousness, the oneness with God. And the more that we remember that and say, oh God, I'm just on a journey. Why am I taking things so seriously? There's some reasons why things are happening on my journey, on your journey, and we want to look at that, okay? So to really understand that this is where we came from in the beginning. There is no end to it. We do life after life. We come back here and we experience more about what it means to be connected to unconditional love, to allow God to speak through us. And so as part of that, I did write something down, which I want to read, is from the Course in Miracles, Lesson 110. I have shared this thought numerous times and will continue to, because it's called I am as God created me. Do we all know that? For this one thought would be enough to save you and the world if you believe that it is true. And truth would mean that you have made no changes in yourself that have reality, nor have changed the universe, so that what God created was replaced by evil, fear, misery, and death. That's not true. If you remained as God created you, then fear has no meaning, evil is not real, and misery and death do not exist. So there's a very powerful statement, beloveds, that we are here to just allow the world to be as God created it, to allow each of us to be as we were created within, which is love and sweetness and oneness with Source and God. And so why is it that there's various things that occur in our life that we may get upset or bothered by? Last weekend I went to see my grandchildren in a play, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And my grandson, Noah, is 11, and yet he was one of the 12 brothers. He played Benjamin, the youngest one, if you know the play at all. And it was so amazing to watch him, because he's on stage with these 11 other guys that are all high school or college, and he's 11 years old. And yet he held his own when he did this play, this role. And it was amazing to watch him. And even afterwards, I talked to some of the brothers, and they go, oh no, God, he's really great and interesting, and a lot of good positive statements about him. And Natalia, who's 15, played one of the wives of the brothers and also sang and she's really grown up a whole lot more because I've watched almost every play they've been in over the last number of years. So here's this wonderful play, which is a huge story about forgiveness. If you've never watched it, where Joseph all the other brothers got jealous because of his dreams and how he felt about himself, and so they sold him to Egypt, to people in Egypt, and there was a lot of comedy in it. It was wonderful play, but it got me thinking about the statement that Shakespeare said, which goes, "All the world is a stage, and we but merely players in roles on this stage." Wow, if we could really take that in and understand that more, because I was watching them. I know who they are. In some respects, I know who they are only by the time that I've been with them. But to see them being in a different role, to see all these people being in different roles, and start thinking about, wow, what roles do I play in my own life? What roles do we all play? How do we take on these roles? Are they temporary roles? Are they permanent roles? That we're on this stage and we get to, like right now, I mean, I said in the audience that I watched people on stage. You could very well watch me on this stage. Or we watched Danny on the stage, or whatever, whoever. So I want you to start thinking in your own mind about roles. What roles have you been playing? I want to talk a little bit about when they come on. When we were children, because there's two roles to kind of look at. There's the outside role, the one that we perform for people, and there's the inside one. And remember what I've said before is everything externally is a reflection of what goes on internally. So our roles came on, as I've described to this before, back when we were children between 0 and 7, when we felt things that were going on in our life and we felt them in our bodies. And we made thoughts about ourselves because that's where we were. Our thoughts were very self-centered. And so we felt emotions, negative emotions that were out of fear, and we made thoughts about ourselves. And that's when we started taking on roles that said, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. Oh, I have to do something for other people to get love. I'm not okay for who I am. I have to do this to get somebody to like me or to please this or all that. So we felt something negatively within our physical body, which happened to be different from the love that we came down in the first place. And was still there and is still there. And so then we take on these thoughts about ourselves, and it was to protect us. And that's when we created the ego. Because it said, it's okay. You are not good enough. Stay in that place so that you can protect yourself. Seems kind of weird that it would do that, but it has. And the whole time growing up, it's the same thing. We still have ego playing its role, saying, you're not good enough. You need to do this to get love, etc., etc. And so we play this role out there to please other people, to feel that we're doing okay, to really try to get connected to God. And when I say try, I usually, when somebody tells me they're trying, I'm going, there is no try. There's either doing it or not doing it. Okay? But we get caught up in that ourselves as well. And so we have these roles. And as we grow up, because we buried them in our physical body, they run us the rest of our lives until we start to wake up. And what are we waking up to? We're waking back up to love, to the truth of who we are. Waking up to source, to the I am consciousness that lives and breathes through us. I mean, I really want you to get that. Let me put this down here. The I am consciousness of Spirit, Christ, God, love. This is our role. This is what should be our role. That we learn to let go of all those old beliefs that we took on. And sometimes it's difficult. People have a hard time going through all of that. But it's time to let go of them. That's why we're here. All of us in our physical body, but that's why we're here. To let go of judgments that we have, that we took on when we were younger, judgments of God, or feeling like we were judged by God, which is still a lot of what goes on in the world. Other religions believe that God is somewhere up there, and we're but merely players down here on the stage that are affected by God's judgments. But we don't believe that here. But we're still caught up in our own judgments about ourselves, aren't we? And we are, and we really need to, that's why we're here, to support each other, to work on letting go, to get more connected and say, I am on a journey of love. That means every moment of my day, I want to learn how to love unconditionally. totally. Not the conditional love that we got from our parents or we get from religion or church or the government or whatever, but unconditionally. That's a powerful word, beloveds. To know that I love myself no matter what. And not only are we doing roles here, but we've done roles in past lives. And that's part of what we believe here, and I firmly believe in that, knowing that we leave this physical body, we're back with Source, we're back with God, so we can really experience what that unconditional love is that we had with God before. We get to experience it again, and then we choose another life to come down into, to practice it, to see what we can do about working through our fears and working through all this negative stuff and get back to that self-love and that unconditional love that God has for us. So this whole wonderful journey to love, no matter what. So I want all of you to start thinking right now, what roles am I playing that I need to let go of? If I got a role where I'm going around physically upset and physically sick in my body all the time and I don't know what to do about it? Am I playing a role where I'm in a place where I don't have a lot of money in my life but I feel lack? Am I playing a role in my life where I feel not loved and I don't have a lot of people in my life? And how does that all create, how does it all manifest out in the world? Am I playing a role, not anybody here, but am I playing a role where I end up in jail for a long time because that's all I decide what to do? Or am I playing a role where I'm homeless on the streets? Or am I playing a role where I'm Barbara Bush, this wonderful woman, or the Queen of England, or whatever roles that we come down into this physical life. We take on a name, we take on a body, and we take on experiences. All of that which we took on here. And as we grow up, it becomes time to let all those go. And know that God is leading us, whether it's we're having problems with a business that we have, or with relationship or family, or whatever it is. Selling a house, moving somewhere, starting a job. Our lives should be and are about love. To expand on that a little bit further, when I looked up the statement from Shakespeare about all the world is a stage and all of us are players, that's one of the strongest statements apparently that Shakespeare had in his plays. And one of the things that goes along with it is the 7 stages of man. And I thought, wow, I might go over that. Does anybody know what they are? Number 1 is infant. So we start off as this infant, very off young spring of a human. And then the second stage, and then that infant between 0 and 7 is what's taking in all this fear. Let me put this back up here. This is the beginning of our life where we feel all the negativity that's going on with our family or people around us, and we make the thoughts about ourselves. That's the beginning of these 7 stages in our life. And so we move from being an infant to being a schoolboy or girl, where we go to school. And we're in school, middle school, elementary school, high school. Sometimes we may go on to college, but it's all about learning. That's our second stage. The third one is lover. So at some point in our 20s, maybe or something, we get involved in a relationship. Maybe we get married. Maybe we start a family. Or we're just expanding ourselves beyond being who we are in school, and we're involved in something. That becomes a lover. Which is interesting. It's called that way since what we want to do is experience love. And it's really exciting when we do get involved. We feel love. We get excited, don't we? This wonderful feeling goes through our bodies for a while. And then somehow that tendency of conditional love starts to come up, and we separate ourselves. Then we go through the 4th stage, which is a soldier. Now, that's normally defined as somebody who fights for the country, as a soldier, part of a service or career. But it could mean a lot of other things. It could be that maybe you're feeling like you're a person that's fighting for your own rights for something inside. Because there's some changes maybe going on from being the lover and the schoolboy before, and you're creating more of life. And I'm fighting, not fighting people out there, but fighting for something in my own life. I don't know, that's what came to me. Then we have justice is the next one. And it's called the legal or philosophical theory by which fairness is administered. So we're thinking about fairness and learning about what is that. Because we go through statements, God, life is not fair. We learned that when we were children or we took it on. But now we start to change and maybe learn that there's something else going on with us. There's philosophical, we start feeling and seeing things on a different level. And advocates of divine command theory say that justice issues from God. So maybe that's a stage where we start to open up to God more after going through all these other stages. What is God? There's a lot of times people start questioning that after they've done their career and they didn't get what they wanted out of it, and they moved to the country and decide they want a softer life. Or they did their work with working with a street market on Wall Street or something like this, the top 500 companies, or they work themselves to death, and then they finally go, there's got to be something more than this. I feel a deeper calling. That's our connection to justice and to God within. Then they go to Pantalone, which originated as part of a master-servant duel. So think about where are we at as being a master over ourselves. We don't need to be a master over others. Or if we still put ourselves in being a servant to our ego. That's part of what the stage was before, I think, when we start looking at justice. Then we start learning about how we want to be in charge of our own lives. After a life of tradesman or merchant, Pantalone is the metaphysical representation of money in the world. So we start looking at money in a whole different way as well during that stage. We're becoming into old age, so we've gone through a lot of learning, a lot of experience, this whole journey of waking up to love inside. And then we get to the seventh stage, which is old age. Refers to ages nearing or surpassing the life expectancy of human beings, so it's thus the end. So we've gone through these 7 stages, however we've experienced it. I just kind of gave you some of my own kind of definition of what I feel about it. You can take it however you want to. And then at some point, when our soul is ready, and to me this is a very important, you could take it or not take it. We look at how people die in car accidents, or this happens, and we all go, wow, it's an accident, it shouldn't have happened. For instance, well, to me, our soul goes when it's time to go. It's the wise one. It chose when to come into physical body and when to leave without a physical body. And sometimes we create weird ways of how to leave. For instance, they just had a Southwest Airline incident where a woman from Albuquerque, who I've heard of before and I lived there, was partially sucked out of an airplane because part of the motor broke off and hit the window where she was at. Now, people kind of look and say, wow, what a weird accident that was. I looked at it and said, wow, what a way to go. You know? Because when the soul was ready to go, it happened. Everything happens. Everything is energy. When we have car accidents or we do this, if we could get to the point of understanding that, in my belief, take it or leave it, if we could really understand that our soul is ready to go, maybe we would make life in our culture so at the point we understand, like some of the Indians, the Native Americans do, it's time for my soul to leave. Why don't I call my family around and let's get together and have a good time with each other and say goodbye, instead of creating upsetting ways to make it happen. Just something to think about when we look at the last stage of death after old age. So we do this over and over again. We have rebirth on this journey of life, of love. And hopefully, what I believe happens too from my readings is that when our soul goes back to the other side, it goes through an experience with teachers that are there of looking back at our life and being able to see where did we love and where did we not love. We don't get judged. God doesn't judge us for what we did or didn't do. It's all about love. Look at your past life. It's like a movie screen. Did you love? Where did you not love? And we take that in so that when we go back to our next life, we've got some more knowledge that we've gained about love that we can use. And we, of course, then we start creating other experiences around that. So, what's your role, beloveds? Is there a role that you have going on that you would like to let go of? Meaning change your thinking about yourself. And some of that stuff is so subtle inside and how it comes out in different ways. So let me give you another experience, because a few Sundays ago I talked to you, for those of you that were here, when I was talking about this, and I mentioned a story about a 3-year-old daughter You remember that? Where she came into the kitchen and the mother was all upset because of the separated from the father and stuff was going on. And this girl took on a statement that says, something must be wrong with me because of something her mother said. So let me give you another one. Let's say that there's a young girl who's born. When the sperm and the egg come together, the DNA of both the mother and the father come together right off the bat there. So we already take it in during that time. Whatever they've got in their DNA that they struggled through. So they have the energy of the masculine and the energy of the feminine, the father and the mother. So there's this girl whose father wasn't there. And so she's raised by her mother, but she feels a loss of this masculine energy that's there. And then her mother gets married, but this guy is there physically, but he's not there emotionally, which feeds more of the energy that this girl has, that men aren't there for me. And so she starts to take on a thought that way. Now, is she totally open to love?
No.
No, because she has this thought that says men aren't there, and it's a block, but it's unconscious. So let's say that there's this young boy who really loves his mother. All children love their parents and want to be with both of them. And so he loves his mother, and he always goes and gives her love all the time, but she gets sick a lot. And every time she gets sick, then he feels the disconnection between them, and he starts to take on a thought that my love is too much. It's my fault, because all children feel things personally. So he begins to hold his love back because he doesn't want to get his mother sick or upset. So he holds it back inside, which doesn't change anything with her because it's all her own stuff. Is his heart open to love? No. So they grow up, and let's say they come together. Here's this young girl. Men aren't there for me. The boy says, my love hurts others. And so they come together, and they want to have a relationship of love, but they don't know how to do that. And they're blocked by those thoughts that go on. And so she has a thought sometimes, every time she sees him changing where he holds back his love, men aren't there for me. And then he feels energy from her, and he goes, she wants love, but she gets pulled away or something happens. My love hurts women, so I'll pull it back. And they do this little dance back and forth until finally at some point he says, this is too much. I can't put up with this. I want a divorce. And he leaves, and what does she do? See, men aren't there for me. Boom. They just created their storyline.
Yeah.
So we all got to think about that. How have we done that in our past life? As we were growing up through all those stages, all the thoughts that we took on as a child that may still be running inside of us that affects our health, our prosperity and abundance, our relationships with one another. That's what we're here for, beloveds, is to learn about God, to let God, as I said in the beginning, any experience that happens, to let God speak through us, not our ego, not our fear, but God and love. And we can support each other with that. So, I want to end with the statement with two things. Lesson 110 again, since I've talked about God. And it says, I am as God created me. I am love. I am not fear. I am not separation. I am love. Every moment of the day, that's what it should be. And anything that goes on with us that is contrary to that, any negative thoughts that come up, any emotions that come up in our body, we need to work on letting it go and not hold on to it from the past. But it does affect us, and there's a period of time where we go through stuff that it wants to come out of the body. It doesn't want to be held in the body. And so it looks like it's a lot of weird stuff going on. But we got to be patient and do the work to get it out and to let God's love come in. I am as God created me. This thought would be enough to save you and the world if you believed that it was true. If you remain as God created you, fear has no meaning, evil is not real, and misery and death do not exist. It's all fake. It's all unreal, all that stuff. Death and misery, evil, and all that other stuff. It's not death, it's just death to the physical body, but our soul lives on in this journey to love. How wondrous that is. We can say, okay, it may be a little tough this life and I'm learning more, but at some point when I go, my soul will go back to unconditional love with God. How wondrous that is. And how wondrous it would be if we could experience more of that right now.
Yes.
Wouldn't it? So here's a poem that I want to read. Now is the time to know that all you do is sacred. So why not consider a lasting truth with yourself and God? Now is the time to understand that all your ideas of right and wrong were just a child's training wheels to be laid aside when you can finally live with love. My dear, please tell me, why do you still throw sticks at your heart and soul? What is it in that sweet voice inside that incited you to fear? Now is the time for the world to know that every thought and action of you have is sacred. This is the time for you to deeply compute the impossibility that there is anything in you but grace. Now is the season to know that everything you do is sacred. That's from Hafiz, who is a Sufi mystic. Great poems. So, know that you're on a journey. Know that you're just on stage right now doing a role. Ask yourself, is this the role I want to keep doing, or is there a different one I want? Choose. You get to choose every day of your life, every moment of your life. Choose to be loved. That's the journey we're on. Namaste.
Namaste.